do you need a college degree? And if so, like, what's the ROI on that college degree?
There's some 18-year-olds who are mature enough or in a position enough where they can say, you know what, I don't know about this. Or you know what, let me try a vocational school.
I don't know that bachelor's degree really sets you apart, especially if you're taking on hefty 5 figure or 6 figure debt.
We send 100% of our students to collegiate. They prepare for college, and we send them off.
I believe the last number was $1.4 trillion in student loan debt here in America.
The way our system works is there has to be large amounts of debt that is rolled out consistently for our system to not collapse.
The average salary for resident doctors in the Northeast is $63,000. The average student loan debt for them is $225,000.
Pretty soon, we might need to have a 3-income household. Kid might have to go to work, or you might have to bring in a third parent who's not even a parent of that child. This how we're gonna have to make it work.
That's actually a thing, bro. Like, I don't know. Like,
I thought that was a joke.
If money's not in the equation for how we're picking our careers,
right?
When does money come into the equation? It only comes into the equation when you get debt.
Evaluate your situation and make sure that you're looking at your specific situation and make that decision from there. Is college right for your kid?
Welcome to the Good Life.
Welcome back. This is the Good Life Visual Audio Podcast. The guys are here with me, except for Stu. He's not here today, but I got Kobi here. Say what's up, man.
What up, though?
Guys, we are back, as always, diving into how to design your life with extraordinary health, wealth, and mindset. Again, find us everywhere that you listen to or watch your podcast, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever that is. Give us a like, share it with somebody that's going to love it. But we're going to dive in today for another solid topic. As many of you can see, or if you're listening, you don't know just yet, but Stu is not here with us.
That's right.
Right? He's off doing his thing, but it's all good.
Miss you, brother.
That's right. We do, man. We miss you, miss your energy. But we're going to hold this thing down. It just so happens that you guys get a chance to get Mr. Health and Mr. Wealth together. So we're going to mix that thing up and have a solid conversation today around health and wealth and some of the things that are just going on in our mind. We were having some conversation offline, right, as we were getting prepped, and Kobi was like, man, let's just record this thing. Why waste it? Let's just record it and have the conversation. And he always knows I'm down for that. So where do you want to start, man? We're going to start with student loans. We're going to talk, you had some wealth questions that we were diving into, which I think will be good for the people to hear. We kind of finished off this last part talking about school.
Yeah. We got a lot for y'all. Unintentionally, intentionally, we got a lot for y'all. But we're going to do like Wayne in 02. We just going to record y'all. We just going to record. But let's take it up from where we stopped in our conversation. I think you were expressing some views about the ROI on a college degree, which I happen to agree with. But I do have some sort of specific, not pushback, but specific clarification points that I think will be interesting for us to go back on. Because generally we agree. But I think there's some situations that I have over the years softened on. And I think it'll be fun to at least incorporate that, since that was our intention at first. And then we can go into, and if that conversation goes anywhere, we'll go into a few things on that. And then I want to hop to that business perspective of your 202 of the health trajectories, wealth sort of category, 101, 202, 303, that 202 level, right? When you're out of that 101 phase, how do you then, and as you always say, leverage your expertise to hyper focus to generate a lot of cash? And that's what I want to get into after our school point. So why don't you get us going on how you feel about the return on investment? What questions people ask you, and how do you really feel, Chris? How do you really feel?
If you want to know how I really feel, you're gonna get it, guys, on the Good Life. That's where you get it. how I really feel about it. So let's just set the table. I'm a college graduate, right? I have an associate's, I have a bachelor's. My wife has two master's degrees. Right?
Oh
We
shoot.
we follow the go to school, get good grades, get an education, right? Get good job, yada yada, right? As I got into the financial world, I started to really debate the money being spent on college. And then, really, the topic we were going to talk about tonight was student loans and how we got to this place of, I believe the last number was $1.4 trillion in student loan debt here in America. 1.4 trillion in student loan debt. How did we get to that place? And that would lead me back to, as I was diving in, that would lead me back to these conversations with people where it seemed like taking on this debt was automatic. It's like, yeah, you're going to college no matter what, even if that means what? I got to take out 50 grand in loans. If I got to take out 150 grand in loans, it doesn't matter.
Right.
You're going to college, right? And when I started to dive into that thought process, I was like, well, that doesn't make fiscal sense, right? Like that doesn't make financial sense to say, no matter
Right.
what, I'm gonna put this money aside. And so I started giving a lot of pushback. You guys know, if you've been following right, The Good Life for any amount of time, I'm not a big fan of the education system in general. In general, just what it's teaching, and right, yeah, I know, right? Haven't heard that one, but like we're just not big fans of it. So when we get into this college part, which is again, it's secondary, right? It's optional, it's voluntary. We started to really take a look at, do you need a college degree, and if so, like what's the ROI on that college degree? 30 years ago, the ROI of that college degree way more than it is now. 30 years ago, 20 years ago, even, we might even be able to say 10 years ago, if you went to college, if you got a bachelor's, if you got an associate's, a bachelor's, man, if you went into right master's, PhD side, you're definitely in the game. But for sure, having that 4-year degree, it sets you apart in the work world. It sets you apart. Move to 2022. I don't know, and listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know that bachelor's degree really sets you apart, especially if you're taking on hefty 5-figure or 6-figure debt that's going to constrict you financially, right? You got to go to school for 4 years. If you come out, what's the average salary of the starting position that you're going into? And was that degree, with the amount of money that you borrowed plus interest, right? That's the side of it. Plus interest that's accruing. Is that worth what now you're getting paid in this career or whatever it is that you went to school for? I said that we have to really debate that. We have to debate that because I don't know. And in my opinion, I don't believe for 90%, let's just say 90% of the degrees that are out there, that it's worth the dollars, especially if it's debt, that you would incur in order to get that degree.
Listen, I think you're 100% right. Actually, I think you're 99% right. All right. I agree with you. And let me give my background a little bit as well. I appreciate that background that you gave. It puts the conversation in context. Okay. Guys, I'm also a college graduate. I am the first in my family to graduate from college. So it is, a badge of honor. I actually am not son of immigrants. I am an immigrant. All right. Born outside the country, Ghana, came in here, worked my way through. Shout out Tufts, shout out Jumbos, all Jumbos out there. I loved it. It's where I met my wife. It's where I met my best friends. I thought college was great. It was a great time. I learned a lot. I found myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I graduated and became a teacher. So I taught in high school and taught high school sophomores history. Loved it. Thought it was great. But I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, knowing what I know now, would I have made the same decisions the way that I made them? Probably not. And in my family, it was a push to, It was both. This is the way we change our family trajectory through education, and also it was a push for sort of climbing up the respect ladder, the whatever you want to call it, right? The badge of honor. Oh yeah, well, my son went to Princeton University, huh? All right. So, in fact, I remember the day that I didn't get into Princeton, multiple tears were shed in my household, right? Multiple tears were shed in my household when I did not get into Princeton. It was like, how? How could they have not taken you? A fine gentleman like your type. How could they have not taken you? You look at your grades. You play the saxophone. You play soccer. You are a volunteer in the neighborhood. How could they have not taken you? Right? All types of people were cursed at Princeton. So
Uh, I believe it, man. That because
I've,
that stuff it rings true for families. Like we're laughing at that and like kind of making light of it, but like it's such a badge of honor,
mm,
and that is something that I don't know is the case anymore for our generations. Why
yeah,
we're debating that ROI? Go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, and I think where I really agree with you, bro, is when I started to really study the student debt part of this equation. First, it's the automatic grab for respect. I doubt that as just one of those societal things. Like, why? Why is it? When I look at these sort of careers that come out of high levels of education, lawyer, doctor, those type of things, like they're all great, but a huge part of why parents want people to their kids to go down that route is because they get a huge amount of respect. But let's take the health field and doctors, for example. There's a lot of things in doctoring that is highly problematic, and it's partly due because of how they're taught and how things have been formulated over the years, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying we don't need doctors. I'm saying they're great people, right? There's a lot of things wrong with our legal system. I'm not saying we don't need lawyers. I mean, they're great people. I'm just saying there might be a little, maybe it's not what we think it is.
Right.
Maybe it's not what we think it is. But if you're willing to put in the work and go down that route, you will be rewarded. And for some people, that's worth it. Now, the automaticity, if that is a word, we're gonna make it a word because we're gonna
We're gonna
say it
make it.
confidently,
We're
right?
gonna make it a
The
word today.
automaticity, right? Of like everybody. See, I talk to my siblings who are younger than me now, and the idea of like going to college is that's not a debate. What do you mean, right? It's good for the high school who can check their numbers off. Oh, we send 100%, especially private schools, and what we send 100% of our students to collegiate. They're prepared for college, and we send them off. Da, 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 da. That's huge. That's
Mhm.
huge. That's a huge thing. So if you decide not to go, it's not just about you, buddy. Right?
Mhm.
Not just that. We mentioned the parent piece. We also mentioned obviously for the colleges that are receiving them, but also the part that really I think we're going to highlight here a little bit is the money aspect of it. See, I operate from this perspective of like there's the way our system works is there has to be large amounts of debt that is rolled out consistently for our system to not collapse. Now, I'm not going to go too far into that you can do it if you wish, but that general principle, our system is a debt-based system, and there has to be large amounts of debt literally rolled out consistently for it to work and not just go berserk. I'll leave
Mhm.
it at that. So student loans then also play that part. They tremendously help that aspect of things, right? And I was listening to Debt Free Education or a book, Debt Free Education, Anthony O'Neill, who does a great job of really breaking down the history of it. Why is it that this is the only type of debt that you can literally die? Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but die, and it still haunts you to to put it in that way, right? That's
Correct.
crazy. Like, what's so crazy about
Can't even
this?
file bankruptcy on it.
Can't even
Right?
file bankruptcy. I went to my chiropractor. My chiropractor is like, I could take out 150,000 to go to chiropractic school. Easy. Easy. I just had to sign some papers. Easy. But then I wanted 100,000 to start my business. And they said, huh?
Exactly.
Sorry, we can't hear you. Huh? What was that? You want a what? To do what? Oh, okay. Come back tomorrow. And he went back tomorrow and they said the bank is closed. So
Telling you.
I think that's where I really agree with you. Clarify or add to any of what I just said.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you just said is again on point. And what I try to do is, pull out the, let's take the parent piece, right? Let's take the parent piece. I just don't agree with the bumper sticker parent. That's what they call it, right? The bumper sticker parent. You put it on your car just so someone can see that that's where your child goes because it gives you more pride than, right, somebody else. So that side of things, if we start kind of breaking all those down, we start to really see where the problem lies. That like it's families and parents that like uphold these systems. I remember us doing a Good Life, maybe it was a Good Life episode where you talked about what holds these systems in place, right? I think we were talking about, and we were talking about like how we were talking about I think the vaccine or mandates or whatever, and like we talked about, well, who's holding these things in place, and it was like the businesses, right? The people that are scared to like change anything for fear of that, right? What's going to happen to them? And there's so many parents that are in that place where it's like they don't know another way. They don't
Mm,
know how to guide their children in another way, so they're going to hold on to old ideology
mm-hmm.
because they don't know. They
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to steer their child in the best direction. So they're just going to be like, no, you got to go to school because that's what I did and that's what I learned and that's what
Mm-hmm.
so and so learned.
Mm-hmm.
We got to break that down, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got to break that because that is what is destroying the children to be like, well, this is the only way. And now they're
Yeah.
so confused if they don't go the other direction. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, absolutely, bro. And not and let's not beat on parents too hard. They have a tough time. It's a tough time for
I'm a
parents, right?
parent.
I
Listen,
know.
I'm a
I'm.
parent.
You're actually going to agree with what I'm saying. You're actually going to agree with what I'm saying. I'm saying that not because I feel bad for parents, but it's because it's not always. Some of it is that's what I did.
Mm,
Another perspective is that's what I didn't have the opportunity
opportunity
to
to
do.
do. Right.
So I bust my tail for you to do it, and now you don't want to do it. Now
Yeah.
what else are you gonna do? What's your grand idea, child, son, who came out of my loins, right?
Right.
What's your grand idea? What are you gonna do? Oh, you're gonna be a rapper, yeah, right? You're gonna start a business. What are you
Mhm.
gonna do, right? So it's. I think you bring up a great point. Is that there is no other clear alternative. However, let's look at two things. First and foremost, there are other alternatives. And secondly, times have changed.
That's right.
So parents, listen up, times have changed. There was a time where you didn't even need a college degree and you could make, let's say, 12,000 a year and provide for your family. And your wife didn't have to go to work if she didn't want to. I'm
Hmm.
not saying this ain't gender roles. Don't come at me, California. This ain't gender roles or nothing like that. What I'm saying is there was a time where you didn't have to have a two income household. A one income household was plenty.
Hmm.
So somebody who went to college and also got a job and then got a job at IBM and was making a little over 12,000, 15,000 a year, they were good. They were so good they could actually go to a drive-in movie on the weekend and be totally fine. So we got to look at the component of like, what does a college degree get you, which you mentioned and hit on? And then also, what does that money that's produced by it get you, right? So kind of twofold, right? So the money don't get you that much. The college degree does. So everything is becoming kind of diluted. So in a way, we're being kind of pushed down this path of like more, 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 more. Now we're gonna, hey, pretty soon we might need to have a three income household. Kid might have to go to work, or you might have to bring in a third parent who's not even a parent of that child. They just this how we're gonna have to make it work, right?
That's actually a thing, bro. Like I don't know.
Oh, I
Like
thought that was a joke.
no, that's actually I've seen I saw this somewhere. I don't know where I saw it, but couples like married families, like couples moving in with each other to save on
Mm,
utilities, expenses, yada yada yada. Like I've seen this. It's
wow.
community living. It's going to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
either that way or right, meaning like we keep getting pushed down this path where more and more and more, or people are going to buck the system and go completely the other way and say, I don't need anything. I'm going to,
Mm,
right, have a tiny home. I'm a shack up with 7 people. We're going to get one plot of land and all pitch in. Like it's going to go that direction also, because we keep getting pushed down this path. And that's just more kind of explaining what we're seeing even in this college, in this student loan side, in this college side of like pushing people in this direction of like, you gotta have more, you gotta make more money, you gotta do all these things. And that's not necessarily the case, right? I'm looking at our message here. Tess said on Instagram that average salary for resident doctors in the Northeast, 63,000. Average student loan debt for them, 225,000.
Get out of here.
Right? So
get out of here. Read that again.
It says the average salary for resident doctors in the Northeast is $63,000. The average student loan debt for them is 225,000.
Wow.
Right? When I'm talking about debating the ROI, that's what I mean. It's like, and you even said like, I know you might want to be a doctor. There's some good people, but like it might be a little broken, right? There might be some things that's like, do I really want to put 225,000 worth of debt on my back to get into this system or this thing or this career or this? And I just think that conversation's not being had enough. We can get away from the parent side, even though again, a lot of the parent stuff, y'all need to listen. From a money standpoint, people always talk about, hey, you need to educate the kids on money. Sure, I'll educate the children on money, but when they go home and hear and see a different message,
right,
it's not going to do anything. So we really do need to educate the parents. And both of those two ways that you even said could be, and again, this is not a bashing our parents or anybody that's a parent, right? You make your own decisions. It is what it is. But like, if it is rooted in the, like, I did it, like, this is the way to go because I did this and like, this is what I know and this is what I was taught, so go this direction. Or if it's based in the, I didn't get a chance to do this, so you're going to do it. Both of those are driven by that parent's ego. It's actually not driven by the child and their talent and what they want to do and of course, no 18-year-old really knows their life. There's probably a few of them that understand, right? But wouldn't it be great to let them figure that out?
Right.
Like,
no, we can't let kids fail no more. Come on, bro. That's not in the picture.
That's not in the picture. Make sure that we cover up all their failures, and then they hit their mid-30s and realize that their whole life was a sham and they've been going in the wrong direction their entire life. You know what I mean? Like, what's the detriment?
And that's it.
That is the detriment, though. Like, that's the detriment, is that pointing them in the wrong direction and they just don't know that, like, this is not the only path. Especially now in 2022, there's 30 paths to get there. It's not one. It used to be one. Now it's 30. And I think we just have to have that conversation a bit more and bring into it money. Bring into it the money conversation. I did this with a group of students. Actually, I was teaching some kids on at a nonprofit, like a STEM organization. And one of the things that we did over this past summer was we did like an entrepreneurial financial literacy type of course. And I was talking to them about what they want it to be, right? Everybody asks you that as a child, where you want to be, what job you want, where you want to go, da, da, da. And I was so surprised that out of all of the kids that I asked, like, hey, what do you want to be? None of them knew how much that paid.
Yeah.
None of them knew. Like, so much, if money's not in the equation for how we're picking our careers,
right?
When does money come into the equation? It only comes into the equation when you get debt, when you got to go to college, when you got to start, right? That's when it comes into play. We need to balance those conversations, man. It's important.
It's very important. It's very important. And I think you asked a critical question there. When does money come into play? Because I remember from my situation, and I'm sure for my siblings, like they signed on that promissory note, and then years after is when I started thinking about, oh, wait, so I got to pay that back. How much was it again? Who do I call? How do I pay it back? What happens? Like, that was way after the fact, right? It was up in the front. It was more of like, let me do this because that's what I got to do. Everybody got to sign a piece of paper. Everybody's got to get the loan. That's just what I do. And bro, my God bless my father, but he actually told me this. He's like, well, when I was as the child, and something in the back of my head was just like, wait, what? So when it came around to do round 2, when it was time for me to go to law school, and I look at these numbers, I'm like, these numbers like double, triple what undergrad was.
Mm-hmm.
What? Why? What? How am I supposed to do that? Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. So I said, I put a full stop on that, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, it actually became an issue to the point where I had to be like, hey, listen, you know, I get that you want me to go to law school and you want me to be a lawyer, but last I checked, you are not paying. I'm not able to pay. Mom's not able to pay.
Ooh,
No, I'm
yeah.
no, I'm not ready. Right? No, I'm just not do that. I'm just not going to
No.
do that. And
But
a lot
that's
of
the
people went
conversation.
after me for that.
I believe it. That's the conversation I want people to have at 18 before they choose to go to college.
College, fair enough.
You, that's it. And I think we would make smarter decisions and not be in 1.4 trillion dollars of student loan debt in this country if we had this financial conversation with the 17-year-old, 18-year-old at the same time. Be like,
Yeah,
listen, you want to go to college? Cool. Here's how much it costs, right? Here's how much you got to take out. Here's how much interest you'll pay over time. This is when you pay it back. So as soon as you get out, you got some options. You can pay some interest now if you want to pick up a job and do that,
right,
but you're going to pay it afterwards. This is how
right,
much you're going to owe, blah, blah, blah. Like if we just talk about that stuff,
right,
there are 18-year-olds that are like, I don't know if
right.
that's what I want to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at a time that we need to start having that conversation, like more than anything else when it comes to like post education, secondary education, whatever they call
Yeah,
it, right? You know what I mean? Like we need to start talking about the money part of it because then we'll debate the ROI.
for sure.
You would do the same thing for a business. You would do the same thing for anything that's going to start to feed you in life. You're going to start to count the costs and see, like, all right, well, what does this cost me? What's the risk reward? You're going to make those decisions
Yep,
early.
yep,
You got to
yep,
start doing it for student loans.
yep. And there's some 18-year-olds who are mature enough or in a position enough where they can say, you know what, I don't know about this, or you know what, let me try a vocational school. Right? That's going to cost me 10,000, maybe. Let me go to coding boot camp. Right? For 18 months, max 18 months, and let me come out with a skill. Right? And I think that's the conversation as well. Besides the money piece of it, having a conversation about what is the skill.
Mm-hmm.
What is the skill that you're acquiring? And I think there's some 18-year-olds too that are going to, knowing what the money piece is, they're going to make different decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of 2 kegs, they might get 1. You know what I'm saying? They're going to make different decisions while they're in college because they're like, oh, but yeah, I got to pay this back. So maybe I'll go to one more class. Maybe I'll figure out what is my skill set that I'm coming out with and not just some general thing, because this is where I have softened over, right? I agree with the piece we're talking about just initially, but this is where I've softened is that if you're coming out with a hard skill,
Mm-hmm.
it might be worth it, right? Because if you're coming out with a hard skill, if you're coming out and you're an engineer, you're coming out, you have a hard skill that's going to go into the workplace or go into entrepreneurship life or however you want to go, and you're going to be able to leverage that skill into something that's going to make your life better, then I do think there's some instances that are worth it. Say you're able to go to a community college, cut your time in college, community college, 10,000, 15,000, right there. Then you go to a 4-year college and you're there only 2 years because you already knocked out all your basics. And then you go into a situation where you go ahead and you grab an electrical engineering degree because you really enjoy that stuff. You like working with your hands. You want to do that, right? And you come out and you get a job making 120,000 a year, right? And ultimately what you spent was 20,000, 25,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. All right.
That
I'm not mad at you.
that ROI is amazing.
I'm not mad at you.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at you. Right? That's what you want to do. I'm not mad at you. And I think this is the other circumstance that's a little trickier. What if mom and dad pull out the cash and they're like, listen, I get that you're a smart aleck and you think you know everything and you want to debate me on this ROI stuff and whatever, but I got $150,000 right here with your name on it if you go to a 4-year college that I approve of. And there's no debate, no negotiation. We're not playing no games. You're going to take this cash or you're going to leave this cash. Now what do you do?
I'm a negotiator anyway, but if there's
No, you can't.
if there's no negotiating and I'm the child, there's no negotiating, I'm taking it. I'm taking it. But there's always a but, right? I'm taking it. But how productive am I going to be in those 4 years if this becomes a forcible thing? And then again, the question becomes, what are we doing this for? What am I like? Again, I think I heard somebody say this, but like, if there were negotiation, be like, Mom, Dad, if you gave me that 150 and I just got life experience and traveled the world and went to Paris and went to, Italy and went to Switzerland and went to all these places to learn culture, would that do me better for 4 years than sitting in an institution that you think you want me to go to and doing keg stands and drinking every night? And like, what's the ROI? I get it. You want to waste this money just to get me to go to college, but that's the conversation is, could that money be used for something to get me further along? Because that's the goal. That's what parents are thinking. I want to set my child up for a better future. I believe this is the way, so I will invest in this way. But if there were another way to invest this money and get my child ahead, I would look at that as well. And that's the conversation. If parents just want to piss away the 150 grand, I guarantee that child is not going to college thinking about their studies primarily. It's not their thing. They're not thinking about like, how I'm just here to do this. Let me knock this out. Let me get it. They're not. They're thinking, Mom and Dad got me here. All right, what's this campus life like? What's this cafeteria? What's this girl? Like, that's just what's going to happen. So then we're back to debating ROI. That's what it comes back to.
Mr. Mouzon, listen. I agree with you. That's the conversation. But see, there's a subset of the population that this is the truth. This is what's going to happen. I can name people, right? We're not going to put anything out there because I never reveal my sources. I'm not a journalist, y'all. I can name people. I'm Tom Brady with the phone. You come out, right? That's going out. I can name folks that this is the situation. It's either you take this money to do what I want you to do with it, or you figure out your own way. There is a subset of population like this, right? And I'm saying if that is, this is where you and I might differ. I don't know. If that is the situation, I'm taking that all day. Why? Because maybe I'm thinking in my head how I am and how I'm going to function as a child, right? I get it. There's going to be, I met a lot of them in college. I'm sure you did too, right? It was like, they had everything paid for. It was all good. But I'll tell you this too. I did also meet a couple that did have it paid and went to every class and got straight A's and had a vision. And we're doing the stuff and came out of undergraduate, right, with no debt, with a great degree. And then they went on and got their master's with no debt, a great degree. And now they're coming out making $300,000 a year. Yeah. So I'm saying that is also a possibility, right? That no debt, making $280.
It's true. But I think that in those scenarios, that's dictated by the child. It's not dictated by the parent. That's dictated by the child. That child was probably great in school. They probably had the vision already without extra influences of saying, this is the way you go and you don't really know what you're doing. They probably already knew this is what they were going to do, right? The kid was probably already intelligent enough to understand, like, I think my best path, because I'm smart, is school. And then the parents just put them in the right position to succeed.
Right.
That's the way it should. And again, that's when college does make sense.
Right. Bam. There we go.
That one specific time. That's the time. It's like, your child is a student. They care about being a student. They like learning. They have an idea of what they want to be or where they want to go. They have an idea of what field that is. They've already shown you that that's who they are. Then I'm going to fund that for you.
For sure.
But I would do the same thing. We just talked about this. If my daughter's musically inclined and she starts saying at 16, 17, I want to go, I don't know, overseas somewhere to be an apprentice or learn the guitar or the saxophone somewhere, I'm going to fund that. I'm going to fund that. You know what I mean?
I'm
like
with you.
I think that's what sets her up. And that's where I think this lies, right? Like,
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. I just want us to also acknowledge that there is some instances in which it is okay. Like I'm not. I used to be point blank, just be like, I don't know if it ever makes sense.
Right.
So what I'm acknowledging here is I've softened a little bit in the sense of like there are some students that it does make sense to fund and to go through. And what is that instance? It's if this kid is mature enough, one, right, to handle all the stuff that's going to come at them socially, whatever it's going to handle, has a vision. And now that vision could be the vision of the kid, or it could be the vision of the parent that the kid has bought into. Right? There's a lot of I can name two friends off the top of my head, one lawyer, one doctor, that I don't know if it was really their idea first or their parents' idea, but like everybody knew that's what they were going to do.
Sure.
And they did it. They executed on it. And they're doing quite well. One surgeon, one is a high profile attorney, right? So if that's the situation, then maybe that makes sense, right? But where I think you're coming from is that's rare.
Very rare.
Gotcha.
You're saying it just is. That's what it takes. It takes the child buying into the parent's vision enough and then actually applying it, like being good at school, wanting to network, do all that stuff, right? And it takes the parent being in a financial position to like fund those things and point their child in that direction. Like all those things happening, it's very rare. It's just rare that happens, but that is the default. So parents who I work with that don't have the money saved yet for it's like the most important thing. And they're willing to go into debt just to point their kid in that direction. And I'm like, let's just evaluate if that's even the direction your kid should go.
Right.
That's all. Right. Like, because of course there's no one way for everybody. There's not one thing that's going to work for everybody. And I'm sure, again, there is always a place for college, for education. There's always a place for it.
Sure.
But we're just not having the conversation enough about what's really the ROI for my child.
Right.
For my child, like what they want to do. And if they're confused about what they want to do, we still have to debate, is going to college the way to get them not confused?
Right.
In my opinion, the answer is no. In my opinion, if my daughter is 18 and she's confused, get your ass out there and make some money. Go figure out how to work. Right? Because that's going to put you into life. Yeah, it's going to put you into life. You're going to start figuring things out. And then if in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you start deciding like, oh, I think I need some education. I think I need a college. Well, let's go reevaluate it. College still there. Let's go figure that side out. But
I'm there with you. I'm 1,000% there with you. I'm 1,000% there with you. And you know, I like to advance the conversation because I think we definitely see it the same way. Yeah. We're talking to a little bit of a different audience. Figure out your unique situation, not a situation that's cookie cutter, not because the guidance counselor says I think your child could go to Princeton, not because you feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses down the street, not because you feel like you didn't do it, so they have to do it, not because you feel like you did it, so they have to do it, not because you feel like it's the only way for them to make a living, not because you feel like if they don't do it, they're going to be a bum, right? Do it for the right reasons, evaluate your situation, and make sure that you're looking at your specific situation and make that decision from there. Is college right for your kid? I'm right there with you. And in terms of having that conversation, man, I think one thing that's really cool is maybe looking for a fun way to kind of introduce some of these conversations. And one way, you know, that comes to mind immediately is I'm hosting, and you and I have talked about this, and you've done the same thing before. I'm hosting another game night with some buddies of mine, and we're playing Rat Race. And that game right there, man. Listen, if you're deciding college, play that game with your kids, your friends, your family, whatever first, and understand how this thing actually works. And then you can have more intelligent conversations about, what's important, where to make our investment, both in time and money. And I know you got some thoughts about that, bro, but
Is
like it
that
just hit me that let's have that conversation around something fun.
yeah, yeah, I think that's the best way to bring it up. Is that the cash flow 101 game?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Cash Flow 101, Rat Race. So yeah.
yeah. So if anybody that's listening never played the game, I highly recommend it. Kobi does also, right? Like Cash Flow 101. It's basically the premise of the game is you're in the rat race. The goal is to get out of the rat race and become financially free, right? Like that's the goal of the game. But I play this game. I might have told you this, Kobi. I play this game with a lot of people, and it shows why people stay in the rat race because they play the game like their own money, right? Like they play the game in the same money mindset that they think about money in their life. So
Mm,
when people start the game, it takes them some time to actually figure out how to get out of the rat race, unless
hmm.
they already have that mindset. Unless they're already like knowing and you got some knowledge and some information on how to get passive income, residual income, understand that side. Unless you're already thinking about it, it's that game is really difficult for just the average person to actually get out of the rat race. But it's a
Mm.
great game to play. Highly recommend it. That being said, how we choose to introduce these topics, how we choose to talk about them is important, right? One of the things that on the wealth side of things, that's been a huge I want to say challenge, but one of the things I've had to learn over time being here is how to introduce these conversations to people. How to get because in the early stages you're very abrasive. Just let's talk about this. Let's talk about life insurance. Let's talk about right. What do you mean you're gonna die, right? Like it's kind of one of those. And then you start again softening a bit and starting to realize that like people want to have the conversation, they're just not fully comfortable having it. They
Right.
normally come from a place of like some insecurity because they just don't really understand all of the things. And what I've learned to do is again soften the approach and just make the conversation fun. Let's have a conversation about these things. But when you really dive in, specifically on the student loan side, if you really dive into these topics, it's like talking about religion, right?
Mm,
It gets there.
mm.
Like I
Stop
remember,
cursing at me.
yeah, for real. That's what it becomes. Becomes like people like most. And again, hate to go back to parents, but it's just true. We're having the conversation. Most parents aren't open-minded enough to think if they're already stuck in that direction to think that it could be something different or something new, right? They're just
Right.
so when you start having the conversation, introducing it, it comes with a lot of pushback. It comes with a lot of
Yeah.
hesitation and like so we just have to find fun ways to have the conversation and get their mind open to what's out there.
Right. Right. Yeah. 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 No, I couldn't agree more, man. I couldn't agree more. And that game is a great way to do that. Um, if you have a child that likes to read, for me, I like to read. So, and it helped me tremendously to just read up on these topics, man. I had high school, I was working construction with a guy, I never forget, Mr. Hawks, appreciate you. And he started to introduce me to some books. He was just, I'd be like, man, you seem like a, smart guy or whatever. So, he'll send me home with I still have his copy, by the way. If you want it back, let me know.
What's his
But
name,
he
Mr.
get,
Rooks?
no, Chris Hawks, Chris
Oh,
Hawks. Yeah, Hawks.
listen,
Yeah.
he's
He
gonna
gave me
come after
Rich
you.
Dad Poor Dad. He's like,
Oh,
yeah, let me get this back when you're done. I guess he never got it back because I was never done. But he gave me that book. And then I started going ham, Richest Man in Babylon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And obviously he's not the pinnacle of everything, but for me, one book that really helped me get out of debt, and I'm talking about student loans. Student loans. I paid off all my student loans, guys. It's possible.
that's right.
Student loans, car debt. I had a car loan that was I had a car that was upside down
Mm, that
by
happens.
like 8,000.
Yeesh.
Yeah. So this helped me get out of student loan debt, car loan. I was 8,000. I had gotten into an accident, and Geico was telling me that they didn't want to pay or couldn't pay because of blah 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 and the third. You know what I'm saying? You and your lizard both. You know what? I would say some expletive, but y'all get out of here. Okay. So I had some hospital bills. I had some ton of other bills that I had piled up, and I was making a teacher salary. Right? I was making a teacher salary. So one day I just sat down, and this was when I was still thinking about going to law school. I just sat down and I was like, how first of all, I'm not going to law school anytime soon because this doesn't make any sense. And secondly, how do I get out of this? And that's some way, somehow I ran into Total Money Makeover, right?
Ramsey.
And I took that, I just flew with it, bro. I stepped on the pedal so hard, and that was basically all I did for like almost like a year and a half, right? So I knocked it out. By the end, when it was all said and done, I was out of debt completely. I had 6 months of expenses and saved up, and I started to look at other things to do. And at that point, I was like, no way am I gonna go back to school, especially if I didn't know, I couldn't pay for it, one, and two, if I didn't know exactly what I was gonna do with it, right? So that has switched. So come back for part 2 of that story, because a few things have changed along the way for that, because I am in school now. So interesting piece. Right? Part 2, we got you. If you want part 2 of that story, keep coming back. We got you. But before time runs out, man, I wanted to steer the conversation a little bit over to that 202 part of it.
Yeah.
And if you want to set the stage for that, then I can ask my questions, and we can roll with it.
So the 202, when we're talking about kind of the wealth building formula of, a lot of times people get to this place, guys, and this transition out of the student loan side and really diving into how we're continuing to build. Because again, this is the good life, right? So we're talking about how to build. I talk about the levels of money: 101, 202, 303. When you start to get up there, you start to switch the way that you think about things, and then you need new concepts and new information. By the way, that's my thing about Dave Ramsey. Some of you may have heard, or we talk about Dave Ramsey. Just to put it on record, I'm not a Dave Ramsey fan, only because I believe his ideology very much old school. However, where he does make a difference is exactly what you said, Kobi, is people that are in debt, that have little bit lower incomes, that are really trying to figure out how to just get their head above water. Right? That is his niche, that is his market. Once your head is above water, you need new concepts, right? The things that he teaches you can't get you to that next place. And that's, my opinion, but I know a lot of financial professionals say the same exact thing. Place for him, but at the end of the day, we need new concepts, new things to get us there. What I started talking about on the 202 side was just the income and expenses side of things. Eventually, once we understand how to do income and expenses, we have to learn how to get to assets and liabilities. That has to become the dominant conversations that we're having financially, right? And oftentimes we stop at the income and expenses. What's coming in, what's going out, how much, right? How much is it for this? How much is this bill? How much is that? And we stop there. But then once we get to a place where, let's just take somebody that, again, you've done your emergency fund. You've got a year's worth of savings set aside. You're out of consumer debt. Maybe you have a mortgage or something, but you're out of consumer debt in general. You're putting money away for the long haul. You have some type of company-sponsored plan, 401k, 403b. You have a Roth IRA, something TSP, something like that. And things are seemingly good. You might have some extra money set aside. Now you're just trying to figure out, what's the next place for me, right? What's the next level? How do I get there? And that's when we really got to start, like I said, having the conversations around assets and liabilities. And the wealth formula that I show people is, the game is, you want to make sure that your income purchases assets that create you more income. It's like it's a loop, right? Your income that you make, no matter what or where you make your income, have that purchase assets. So assets, by my definition, things that put money into your pocket. Right? Things that put money into your pocket. Liability, something that takes money out. Income purchases assets. Those assets that you purchase should create you more income. Two different ways that we look at those assets creating income. One can be long-term, where you just are holding the equity. So again, you purchase properties. Maybe those properties aren't cash flowing you right now. Or let's just take it, maybe you purchase land. In the real estate side, you purchase land. That land's not cash flowing you right now. However, down the line, maybe you build on it, something happens, it'll start cash flowing you, or you just hold on to the equity and then sell it or do something with it down the line that produces you some more money. Or the other side is getting you something like cash flowing real estate, multifamily, right? Commercial, that it's paying you every month. It's creating more income for you. And you can deploy that income in potentially purchasing new assets. And you do that over and over again. But that becomes the wealth formula and how we start to build on it on that 202 level. So that was what we were talking about, Kobi.
Yep. That was it.
What questions did you have from that?
Yeah, and more so, and I realize we have a short time here, but kind of in looking at the chart 202 that you put up, that was really helpful. I don't know if you want to flash it real quick for for those who want to maybe take a look. Yeah, I thought this was really helpful, right? So what Chris is talking about is mastering the income expenses piece of it, and then moving on to a balance sheet conversation of assets and liabilities. And when we scoot over to that assets classes, I look at it and I say, you know what? Obviously, want to have some cash, be liquid. I love a couple commodities, for me specifically gold and silver. And but then the places where I want to hang my hat, and Chris, you always talk about having some sort of expertise. All right. So, with real
Specialized
estate,
knowledge.
specialized knowledge.
That's
Okay.
it. Right?
Yes, sir.
That's it. And when you talk about, and again, I'm glad we can even pull this up. When you talk about the asset classes, guys, this is when I say take your income, purchase assets that create you more income. These are your options. There's only 5 asset classes. Some people say 6, but there's only 5 really asset classes. This is just where all people hold their money. All wealthy people hold their money. If you ever heard the saying, diversify your assets, that's what it means, right? Diversify them, meaning spread them across these different asset classes. You got 5. You got cash, which is, like Kobi said, is liquidity, right? Just having cash. You got equities, which is ownership of a business. Some people choose to do that passively in the stock market. Some people choose to start a business and own a business or do some startup funding, right? You got fixed income, that's loaning or lending your money. It's something that a lot of times people at our level aren't familiar with. But think of it, if you've ever bought a house or you're a real estate investor, you need hard money, right? A hard money lender is you could become a hard money lender technically if you really wanted to. If you have the capital, you just loan it to people. You loan it at high interest rates and you get money back, right? So that's an asset class. You can just lend money out, right? Then you got real estate, ownership of a physical space or a piece of land, right? We all understand the real estate side. And then you have commodities, which is ownership of goods, gold, silver, oil, right? Chickens, oranges, right? There's commodities. There's a market for everything. So across all of these is where you're going to build your wealth. But really, you're going to get a specialized knowledge in 1 or 2 of these areas, and that's what's going to build your wealth. Let me just give the example of Jay-Z real quick. People don't, again, a lot of people want to go real estate side. I just look at Jay-Z because he's a billionaire, right? And happened to be my favorite rapper. But either way, right?
Shout out,
right? Shout out Jay-Z. His lowest asset class, his least valued asset class, I believe, is real estate. He only has about 50 million of his net worth in real estate. Majority of it, equities, right? I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman, right? Like he understands business. So he chose to be like, yeah, I'll start as a rapper, but I understand business. So I'm just going to start building businesses. So now he has Ace of Spade and Rock Nation and all the stuff he has, but that's where his net worth comes from, that asset class. Then he takes his money and he buys art and he buys, right? Like he gets other things from that, but that's where he focused. So that's normally how people build wealth, is they are looking at one asset class and getting a specialized knowledge in that one asset class. And from there, making all the money they want to and putting it other places.
Bam. And I think that is huge right there. And that has, I have a background in real estate, commercial real estate, residential real estate, and even in REITs. I grew up working in construction. I've worked with a lot of investors. I have specialization in probate, etc. So I look at that and I'm like, well, okay, maybe that's the direction I want to go in. But the more I think about it, the more I really look at it, it's like where I'm really leaning is actually equities, right? Where I'm really leaning is actually a business. Now I have this insane interest in health and wellness. And I also have a background in that as well. So where I'm working at right now is building a business around that. And so, my struggle, or not really a struggle, but more of a point of focus is, okay, do I go hard in this direction and building this business? And is this business generate enough cash to get me to a point where I'm purchasing real estate the way I want to purchase real estate, not necessarily, coming in as low man on the totem pole? Because I know low man on the totem pole, you in real estate, you got two things. You either got the deal or the cash.
That's right.
That's it. You either have the deal or the cash. So I realized, and I went both routes, right? I was like, I don't have the cash, right? So then I started building systems to find the deal. But then I realized, even if you do that, it's not that it's not going to work. It could work, but you got to approach it differently in a way that I didn't want to do at that particular time. I want to come back with the cash and fund the deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was real interesting to me. So as we're talking right now, I'm like, let me hone in on this equities business aspect. What is it going to take to take what I'm doing now? Let's say specifically narrowing it down to coaching, to something that produces 100K a month. And I say 100K because if it can do 100K, it can certainly do 10K. Right? It can certainly do 10K. So that's the conversation that, we won't have too much time to tap into, but shoot, wow, let's give it a shot. Let's try.
Yeah. So, we talked about this a little bit, just about how we're now thinking about putting something in place, because most people don't scale businesses, right? Most people, if we look at that equity side of things, again, kind of does tie into our conversation around student loans and pushing people in the direction, because school does not get you prepared to run a business. Even business school, guys, even business school, just because you understand like the technical ways of looking at a P&L and how to, right, like how to move valuations and those types of things, it's actually not giving you the courage and the heart and the mind that you need to go actually out there and make sales and do marketing and do all that type of stuff, right? So school does not lead us into that direction. So that's why when we get into this equity space, it's like a whole new learning curve for us. We're trying to figure this whole thing out. And a lot of times, back to Rich Dad Poor Dad, there's a lot of parallels in what we're talking about tonight. Come in Rich Dad Poor Dad. The cash flow quadrant talks about, if you haven't read it, right, talks about the 4 ways that we make income: employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. The points I always highlight in business is there's a big difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. That's the understanding how to go from self-employed to business owner is how you understand and how to take your business from 5,000 a month to 100,000 a month, right? It's because you realize that there's certain things that need to be in place. Figuring out what is your product and what is your service, how much are you selling it for, what's the price point, all that type of stuff. You got to master that and know that side, know your sales funnel, all that good stuff. Then you need to figure out how to create systems that get you or the person that's running the business out of the center of the business. You see, that's the big difference in between being self-employed and being a business owner. Is self-employed, it's all on you. It's all on you. Like, you're the center of it. If we take that person out of the middle, the business doesn't run. And there's a lot of people that are self-employed. Talk about doctors that run their own practice, right? Lawyers that run their own practice. If they don't show up, there's no practice. Like, it doesn't, they have to show up at some point to get paid, to keep the business running. That's self-employed. Once you have a business, though, that is separate from you, that you can then just have systems in place. It might all be your material, might be your face, might be your likeness, might be your messages, might be your coach. It might be all you, but you're not running the day-to-day and you're not in the middle of it. Then you can scale and you take your business from helping 100 clients a month to helping 100,000 clients a month, and your income will follow. The revenue will follow if you can figure out how to do that. And those are the parts that are tough. That's why entrepreneurship is tough, right? Like, because otherwise you'll be working forever. So unless you put some systems in place, you get yourself out of the middle, figure out how to get yourself out of the middle, then figure out how to take your message from the few people that know to a lot of people that know, right? That's how you really build it.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. Got it. And bro, I appreciate you putting it into the quadrants because that on a high level brings more clarity. And I knew the quadrants, but applying it to this particular situation was the difference in that conversation just now. And so right now, I'm for sure self-employed, right? So it's looking at how do I go from being self-employed and putting systems into place to move it into a business as a business owner. And I also realized as I'm looking at the chart is why I did not want to be in real estate is because I don't want to be self-employed in real estate, one, and I don't want to be a business owner in real estate. I want to be an investor in real estate. Right. Big difference. Big difference. And that's putting it into words what I was feeling and what kind of like moved me off. I was like, I don't know. I see how these people are doing it. You know, dude's got 4 doors and he's barely scraping by. Like, what? Why would you do that? Like, you need like 100. And it's not even necessarily the number of doors, but it's the quadrants. It's the quadrant. Which quadrant are you in? Because if you have 1 door and you're in an investor quadrant and it's excellent and it's really rolling, that might be all you need. Maybe you just have a ranch or whatever it is, right? So yeah, so we'll guys, if you enjoy this conversation, we would love to do a part 2 of this, maybe dive a little bit deeper. Stu, sorry you missed it. You know, but it also gave us the opportunity to really dive into this. I think this piece of moving from a self-employed to business owner is a great conversation. I have a lot of follow-up here that we could definitely dive into.
And that conversation is going to be so beneficial for people, bro, because that's where most people are. When I coach people, if I coach people down the business path and we have that conversation, most people are just figuring out how to get on the BI side, right? They're hanging out on the ES side. They either have a job and then they're starting a part-time business, or they're fully self-employed and they're just trying to figure out, how do I bring in more revenue? How do I become the investor? How do I have systems? Like, how do I get over to this side? That's the game, people. You should get Cash Flow 101. That's the game. That's the game of life, right? Like that's what you're fighting for. That's why only 5% of people get to that other side. It's because that's the game. You got to figure that out. And yeah, we should have a part 2 and talk about it, because there are some things you can think about and put in place and execute on to help you get to that BI side, right? There's levels, guys, like always. So it might just be by you starting to be self-employed for the next 2 years. And then you're figuring out the systems in your business so you can get to the business owner side, right? Like there's foundation. There's foundation that has to happen, but it'd be good to have that conversation for sure.
I'm with it. Looking forward to it, man. I can't wait.
Can't wait. Wrap us up, man. Finish this thing out.
Man, listen, it's been a great conversation. And I definitely have to scoop up this here. What is it? The
Good Life.
The Good Life piece of it. Let's go ahead and wrap us up here. But I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation. I think it's a lot of fun and really definitely puts a lot of more ideas and concepts into a framework that's really beneficial. So that's it for us today, guys. If you like what you heard, go ahead and subscribe, smash that like button. Tune in next Monday for another good one, unless you are on Instagram and you get the raw on Wednesdays. And share with somebody who would love, or hopefully love this episode, because all press is good press and nobody can hate some episode about good money, man. That's what we're up to. So until next time, keep living the good life, and we'll see you next time. We out of here, baby. Yeah.
Later, guys.
Welcome to the good life.